Oh, welcome back, my gardening friends. Well, I've tried sheep's wool for the first time in 2024. I protect my beds or protect the manure or whatever I put underneath the material with various things like cardboard. If you don't, we end up with lots of weeds. Easy to get out on a no dig, don't get me wrong. 3-year-old leaf mould compost that's unscrupulously dumped by the cannabis growers. The perlite in that is extreme. There's the sheep's wool. Not a weed in sight, he says, hopefully. Fresh autumn leaves. This is the rhubarb bed, protecting those new crowns. Not new crowns, the new shoots, shall we say. So both of these beds have had a skimming of well-rotted manure. Cardboard doesn't cost nothing. The sheep's wool was £2 a fleece. I got 10 fleeces in a 1-ton bag, so I spent £20, but I covered a lot of beds, and I'm thinking about burying the wool, sheep's wool, so that the plants can feed off the nitrogen. But let's have a little closer look at the cardboard first. If my worms are happy, my soil will flourish. Now you can see here how well the cardboard's breaking down. The amount of baby worms. There's a real baby there. We've got them here where it hasn't dried out. They're doing a great job. Because this cardboard's broken down so well, I shall cover this with my homemade potting compost, or the material out of the bins, which the rats are turning for me at the moment. I'm just going to pause you and bring you around. There are a few weeds in this bed, but this is where the temporary compost bins were last year, I believe, or the year before. It could have been last year. So let's just peel this back. It seems to be rotting down. So I've never used it before. We haven't had rain for a while, but no, we've got plenty of worm activity. Just stops the birds. It's only a thin layer. It just stops the birds from getting eaten unnecessarily. I've just got to decide this year now whether I purchase 2 bags, because I'd like to use some of this to protect the potatoes as they're growing. In the giant bin, but that grass has tried to grow. But yes, I'm pleased with it. £20. It did cover quite a few beds, and the worms are happy. If the worms are happy, I'm happy. Looking at this bed, there's 3 to 4 fleeces on here, so maximum of £8. You'd struggle to cover that in fresh compost to help revitalise it and add nutrients. So it stops the weeds in a fashion, adds nitrogen, protects the worms. I think it's a no-brainer. It'll have to be done. I think I'm going to get 2 bags this year. It's just took me a couple of minutes just to pull the rest of those weeds out. It's took me 5 minutes to make this 90 litres of compost up with 60 litres in each heap. It's my homemade potting compost. But the material I'm using now. Good morning, Mr. Geese. Swans, whatever. And this material has got 4-year-old wood chips sifted, cocoa coir, compost that's unscrupulously dumped by the cannabis growers with the added perlite in, same as the cocoa coir. My potato compost. So when I do my potatoes, straight out the compost bin with a few added extra ingredients and whatever else. If you've missed the video, why not look back on my homemade potting compost. That looks pretty. I also use the sheep's wool in the top of my wormery. That ceases to, that stops at around August, September. Then I use the temporary compost bins on the beds. So let's dig this out. These are the panels from home. They'll be used at the back of the galvanised containers to replace those. Now these plastic sheets are going to be the new top for this. My intentions are to move it over. I've got some new pallets to replace them. That job will get done when it gets done. But the old one's just going rotten there. I'll clear that off, just in case it's sending everything blurry. That's quite a heavy lid. It's gone rotten, the water gets in, it's covered in plastic, retains the moisture, goes rotten. But there's the sheep's wool. I normally get quite a bit of rat activity. You might be able to see over there, the hole, there's a hole down that end as well. Now this does stink like mouldy old sheep's wool. But I just wondered whether it kept the worms happy. Now there was a good layer of cardboard on here. Again, it's all disappeared. All this material that hasn't broken down very well will end up going in the bottom. Oh, God, that's good stuff. There's not many worms left. But this is what I add to my potatoes. Bits like this just disappear. Very difficult to break down strawberry roots. I put those in my perennial weed bin. This is so much better. I had more of this material last year, which is the stalks from sweet corn, etc. Obviously, the deeper I go, the better it should get because it's been in there longer. Always worms now, but I'm well happy with that. Oh, poor tulip bulb. Nature always finds a way. Don't throw it away, I'll stick it in the spring bulb. But that is so much better. So that's convinced me even more. And having all this taken down, make it smaller. I need new hinges. Just make a new frame. Make it that little bit smaller. try and stop the mice, but the mice rats come in and just turn it for me, but there's no evidence of that at this time. No, I think the sheep wool was well worth the £20 that I paid for it. Oh, I'm going to sift some of that. I'm impressed, guys, honest. Really impressed with this. Dug into something hard there. Dinosaur. Yeah, it's the sweet corn or sunflower. Worms can have that. There's 30 litres there. Right, I'll catch you back at my sifting station. Right, we're all set up. And so there's all sorts in here. It's broke down more than normal. And what you'd normally get is stuff like this that hasn't broken down. You leave it in and the potatoes do a cracking job. So make sure I tip it into the right container to go back in the compost. But I keep saying this, but it does give me great satisfaction. I could stand here sifting this. When I see people sifting bought compost and they're fetching all sorts of things out of it. Again, there's the strawberries. See, it's all breaking down, whatever's in there. But out of all that, the worms are doing a cracking job. So if we kept the worms nice and the worms, keeping the worms, the warmth, the warmth, keeping the worms happy over the winter months, it's well worth it. But the poor farmer, she only gets 50p a fleece. So diversifying, trying to find other means. It's not the perfect wool, but there's some of the debris. Everybody finds that. Not going to force it through. Again, give it another 12 months of the potatoes and sort that out. Right, I've got another third left. I'll do that and I'll show you what we've got. That's good enough to use, isn't it, really? Let's just see how much of that bucket we actually got. Just fluff up. Let's not mix it with what I mixed earlier to cover that sheep's wool. So that sort of depth was material that we couldn't really use, but that's lovely stuff in my eyes. More money in my pocket that Mrs. K can't get her hands on. Well, she does eventually. Well, I can sift and top these beds up as we go. But to go from this, weed it, cover it, and then hopefully get some vegetables in. But keeping these maintained like this over the winter keeps those worms happy. Those worms in the giant wormery have just gobbled all the food up they want and then just disappeared. Probably escape out and drop into the wood chips. Crack on. I'll use those wood chips in 3 or 4 years' time to add to my compost mixes. I wouldn't have raised beds like this if it wasn't for the unscrupulously dumped compost. But you can still make enough compost of your own. I'll be doing a reveal of the wormery complete, empty. I'll be doing a reveal on the temporary compost bin. So we start filling the temporary compost bins when we've filled the wormery. No good keep adding to it, because as you can see, there's nothing on top to actually put anywhere else other than some of the big stuff, like the dinosaur bones. There'll be lots of material in the temporary compost bins that the rats haven't turned that will go into the wormery. I'll add a bit of manure, some extra worms. There should be loads in there. And if there's plenty of food, the worms will multiply and they'll keep going and going until that food source is gone. And gardening on a budget, yeah, I could spend loads of money if I wanted, but why should we? We can still grow vegetables, not so many, by using our homemade liquid plant foods. But if you want to go and spend a load of money on fertilizers just to double your crop, yes, fair enough. But I get great satisfaction out of scratching around. Happy gardening to you all. Till next time, my friends. Ta-ra for now. Don't forget those comments. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Oh, these old bones. But in the future, I'll make gardening, it'll make my gardening a lot easier. Ta-ra for now.